All right. Well, welcome to our fifth session. We have one more session after this next week, and we are so glad that you've stuck it out through this whole process. And we know that there's been some heavy parts. There's been some maybe parts that have been a little bit lighter, but all in all, we are grateful. Jen and Ann and I are grateful that you saw fit to not just show up every Wednesday night just to be here, but that you are doing the hard work on yourself to make yourself the healthiest version in your body, your heart, and your mind. So we will end next Wednesday night with our last session. Jen's going to wrap us up. You don't want to miss that. And or if you're watching the recording, make sure and watch that last one. It'll be a good wrap up to kind of everything that we've been talking about. So tonight we're going to talk specifically about the Enneagram specifically. And we're going to go through all 9 types and all that stuff. So if you had the chance to take the assessment that I provided, the link that Ann gave you guys on that little card, or if you're watching online, you were given access to that link, you would have gotten your results, your percentages, kind of which is higher, that kind of thing. And so hopefully tonight when I go through these 9 types, it will make a little bit more sense what those numbers are about. So just kind of hang in with that if you brought those with you. But before we get to that, I want to remind us that this isn't just about me learning who I am so that I can just know who I am. But we want to be the healthiest versions of ourselves, and we want to be reminded that what we talked about last time I was up here is that the details of who I am matter to my Creator God. That He created me exactly how He wanted to create me. And his desire is for me to be completely content with exactly how He made me. Now, a lot of times, because we know that sin came into this world, we choose a different route and we choose our own flesh over what the Spirit is telling us to do. And so keep in mind, this isn't just about me learning about the Enneagram, but this is truly about me being who God has created me to be in that. And I found this quote that I thought was just a really good wrap up of that. I'm reading a book. I told you guys, I think last time I was up here, that I got certified as an Enneagram coach through a program called Your Enneagram Coach. Jeff and Beth McCord are the founders of that, and they lead that program. And basically, they look at the Enneagram through the eyes of the gospel. And so every resource that they have is biblically based, and it's just very valuable. So I would highly recommend, if you haven't looked up their stuff, to check them out if you want to go a little bit deeper. But they released a book within the past couple of months, I believe, and it's called More Than Your Number. And I'm reading through that book. I'm not even a third of the way through. But in the first third that I've been reading, I found this quote that I thought was very applicable to what we've been talking about not just knowing who we are just to know who we are, but what is this about? And there's got to be a deeper level to this. And I thought this was really good. It says, but is this work on ourselves, and specifically in learning who we are, our Enneagram number, is this work biblical? Or is it just a religious spin on a worldly idea of self-appreciation and self-help? You know, we've talked the past several weeks, if you've been with us, that the world has kind of taken that whole self-help word and made it their own. But we know that Jesus walked on this earth and He taught us through His own life how to be healthy within who we are. And so basically this whole idea is this work biblical, or is it just kind of a spin, kind of a religious spin to make us feel better? She goes on, and this is Beth McCord saying this. She goes on to say, Paul the apostle, pondered this line of questioning in Romans 7:15. And it says, I do not understand my own actions, for I do not do what I want, but I do the very thing I hate. You've probably heard that verse before, that whole, I do the thing that I don't want to do, and I don't do the thing that I should do. And Paul is pondering this whole idea. And I like this. She says, the New Living Translation, if you have that, of Romans 7:15, says the first few words of that express the whole of the matter in a way that all of us can relate to. In the New Living, the very beginning of Romans 7:15 says, I don't understand myself. And I wonder if you've thought that before. I can almost guarantee that you have. Because I know there's so many times that it's easier for me to look out and go, I don't understand him, or I don't understand her, or I don't understand my kids, or whatever it is. When in reality, the person that I don't understand the most is myself. Because I have been made a new creation. I have been given a new heart, right? And yet I choose the things that I don't want to choose. And it's that tug, right? I want you to kind of think of it in relation to this. Adam and Eve, when sin entered through the choice that they made, right? We, the rest of us after that, were born into fallenness, okay? We were born into a fallen world. And a lot of times we choose sinfulness, right? Even as believers, even as those who are a new creation, right? The old is gone, the new has come, but we still at times choose our sin nature. And the brokenness makes us confused with ourselves. We're sitting there going, I have a choice, right? I have a choice to sin. I'm not an unbeliever who just works within their nature of sin. No, I have a choice. And many times, what do? I choose the way of my flesh. And within that, there's this fog that happens because we don't quite understand, right? Why am I always choosing the way that is not of God? And that's when a lot of times we say, I don't understand myself. And so what is good about this, us learning who we are and being content with who we are, is getting to a place where we say, okay, I see the habits these habits that I've adopted, I guess, and this pattern that these habits have made. And I want to choose something different. And that's what I hope that really our desire and our prayer for you guys is that you get to a place where you realize you see the patterns that are coming up, and you see the choices that you're making. And instead of being led by our flesh, we are led by the Spirit. All right. And so learning about ourselves will help us be able to see that a little bit clearer. All right. Okay. So let's go to the handout where it says your details matter at the top. And we're going to go through all 9 types, all right, of the Enneagram. Like I said, I think last time I was up here, the Enneagram is a very old thing. It's not anything new, even though it's kind of made a resurgence in the past several years. But basically, this is a personality assessment, all right? And like you heard last time I got up here, God used the Enneagram in my life because I enjoy studying people. I enjoy talking about personalities and that kind of thing. And he basically used this personality assessment, the Enneagram, to do some really good hard work on me. And that's my hope for you, is if God chooses to use this as a tool, that you will have that same kind of good work on you. So let's go through each one. What we're going to talk about, we're going to go through each 9, and we're going to talk about 2 specific things with each type, okay? We're going to talk about each type's core fear, all right? The thing that they fear the most, all right? And their core longing, what they desire to hear more than any other thing, okay? And I think I might have mentioned this last time. If not, I'll say it again. But the Enneagram is focused on the motivation behind what we do instead of what we do. Okay, so keep that in mind, all right? Because I think I used the example, if there are 4 or 5 of us, if we all made our beds each morning, the action, the making of our bed is the same, okay? The action, what we're doing is the same. But the motivation, why we do that, why we make our bed every day is different, all right? And so that's what the Enneagram's looking at. It's kind of that underneath motivation, why we do what we do, all right? So the fear and the longing for each type is kind of at that basic motivation, okay? That motivates that personality type to do what they do, all right? Okay, so let's start out with our ones. Our ones are called the reformers, all right? You might even, if you do kind of an Enneagram search and kind of study a little bit more, there are some Enneagram providers or programs that call ones the perfectionists, all right? I tend to think that can sometimes have a negative connotation to it. So I like that your Enneagram coach, they actually use the word reformer because that's basically what a one does. Their desire is to make the world a better place in what is right versus what is wrong, all right? Look at their core fear. The core fear of the one is being wrong, bad, or inappropriate. I have a friend who is a one, and one time she told me, she said, Jamie, us ones, we feel like we are the gatekeepers of what is right and wrong. In other words, they're able to come into a situation and look at it from a very objective a standpoint of this is right and this is wrong, and how can I help what is wrong come into what is right, all right? So you can kind of see the word perfectionist, and these people usually are. They like things done pretty close to perfect, right? And there can be some struggle with that. But again, they are trying to right what is wrong, all right? Look at their greatest longing. This is what they desire to hear above anything else. And they want to hear the sentence, you are good. Now, do you hear the difference between you are good and you are right? Okay, they do want to be right, okay? But it's not just about them being right. They want to hear the word good, which I feel like has such a depth there, right? It has such it's this, I want to appear before the world, before in any relationship I'm in any situation I'm in, I want to look like I am good. All right. My mother-in-law is a one. And I had this conversation with her as I was kind of recently, within the past year, as I was kind of introducing the Enneagram to her. And she will be 72 in a couple of weeks. And so when she was in grade school, so we're talking, the 50s, right? So you can imagine, and those of you who were in grade school at that time, how school probably and instruction in a classroom looked a little bit different probably than it does these days. But she says she'll never forget this. She was in, I believe, first or second grade, early elementary. And her teacher had given the class an assignment to color a coloring page, okay? And my mother-in-law doesn't remember exactly like if she was given specific instructions on how to do it, but she took that coloring page back to her desk and she just made it come alive. Like she colored outside the lines and she added all kinds of color. There's a part of her personality that is very artistic, can be very artistic. And she brings walks that paper back up to her teacher. And her teacher looks at it and puts an F, puts the letter F on it and hands it back to my mother-in-law. Basically saying, you failed that. And my mother-in-law said, I walked back to my desk trying to keep myself from crying, right? And made a vow to myself that I would never be embarrassed like that again, and I will always do what is right. And I know for some of you that may kind of weigh heavy because maybe you've been in a situation or you can remember back when you were 5, 6, 10 years old, and someone you did something that you thought would be seen as good and right and fun, and it was ridiculed, and you made a vow to yourself. And I can stand as someone who has been in my in-laws' family. Rainey and I have been married for going on 16 years, and so I can see that even in the past, almost 2 decades that I've been in this family, I can see that the choices that my mother-in-law makes are very calculated because she will not be embarrassed like that again. And so you kind of see where that comes from. All right, so let's move to our twos. Our twos are called the helper. This is where I land. My main type is a 2. And a lot of times when people talk about twos or they kind of get to know the Enneagram a little bit, they kind of see it as the stereotypical church woman. And as all women, I know, we can kind of laugh about that. But these are the women, men and women. There are men who are twos. But these are the ones who come into any kind of situation and can assess the situation, not necessarily on what is right and wrong, like the ones, but they come into a situation and assess the situation on what needs to be done to be helpful, all right? I have been in homes where I've been at a dinner party and I have washed dishes or loaded a dishwasher of someone I barely knew, because it was just this innate desire and ability to see a situation that needed to be taken care of and help with it. Randy always laughs at me because we go to restaurants with the kids. Like, I'm stacking the plates, we're finished, and I'm stacking the plates and putting all the plates in a stack and putting all the napkins, and Randy's like, babe, you don't have to do that. But it's just it's this innate ability and really ability, probably is not the right word, but just I see a situation and what can I do to make it, to be helpful in it, all right? Look at the core fear of us twos. Our core fear is being rejected and unwanted. So here's the deal. This is the work that you'll probably see a little bit of what came out in me last year is, I want to come in and I want to unload your dishwasher, or I want to wash your dishes, or I want to take you a meal. But here's my fear. If I don't do that, I will be unloved and I will be rejected. I will be told that I am no longer someone that you need in your life. And that's a part of my fear. In fact, I've told many people, sometimes twos we struggle with, and I specifically do, with I want to be your favorite, and I want to be your favorite, and I want to be your favorite. I want to be the person that you come to for help. And so I do my things motivated by not being rejected by you. All right? Look at our core longing, the twos' core longing. We want to hear you are wanted and loved. And so everything we do is motivated by that. Do you see that? So really working on ourselves as twos, we have to get that into that pure motive thing, right? Because there's nothing wrong with me wanting to help you, but I've got to make sure that when I'm doing it is purely motivated. All right. Okay, let's move to the threes. The threes, these are called the achiever. I am married to a 3. My husband is a 3. And I have one of my best friends is a 3. I've got several 3s that are around me. And I've learned them pretty well in the past couple of years. These are the people who can walk into a situation, okay? And they're not necessarily assessing it for right or wrong, not necessarily assessing it for how they can help, but they are going to make that situation the best thing they can ever make it. They are very success-driven, okay? These are our CEOs. These are our presidents. These are our people who lead, whether it's a PTO or it's a band booster club or it's the United States of America. Like they can come into a situation and lead it really well and make it successful because they're driven by that. Look at their core fear. Their core fear is being exposed as incompetent or worthless. Do you see that? Do you see how they are motivated that they don't want to look like they don't know how to do something? In fact, Randy has told me before, and we've laughed about it, that he said, I won't try something that I don't know that I'm going to nail it. Because really that's his thought, is I'm not going to attempt to do something that I'm not totally positive that this is going to be successful. Just a couple of weeks ago, we were building a house, and my vehicle, I have a Ford Expedition, so it's a good-sized SUV, but it got stuck real bad in the big rain we had a couple weeks ago, and it got stuck in the mud at our land where we're building a house. And I'm telling you, his 3 came out in that he was going to conquer this thing if it meant he had to lift the car up and move it. Because there's just something about them attempting something and not just attempting it and going, I guess I couldn't do it. No, they're going to do it, all right? Again, because they fear so much being incompetent or worthless, all right? Look at their greatest longing. It's to hear you are loved for simply being you. Isn't that cool? I remember this was several years ago, but I think, it was 2020 when I kind of really started getting into the Enneagram. And right about the time that the world, shut down for a little while. And I was driving, at that time we were living in Weatherford, Texas, and so driving to Fort Worth was about 20 minutes, so there was something I needed in Fort Worth. So I had driven into Fort Worth by myself, and I remember driving back, I just remember coming back from Fort Worth, and I was listening to a podcast, and I would highly, if you're into podcasts and you kind of want to go a little bit deeper with Enneagram, Annie F. Downs has a podcast called That Sounds Fun, and it's really she's a really good podcast host, and she did several summers in a row called Enneagram summer. And basically she went through I think in the month of June or something like that, she went through each main type and she had of the Enneagram, and she had a male and a female from each type come onto her show and talk, basically just answer questions and basically just kind of talk about who they are. And so I'm listening to the 3, okay, the episode on the 3. And the male 3 was talking, and he was talking about how when he is able, he can put on a performance. I mean, I have seen 3s, my husband and others included, come into any situation and they can talk about this, they can talk about this, they can talk about this. They're able to do that. But and this male 3 was saying, I can come into a situation and I can put on a performance and I can make something successful. He said, but when I feel the most loved and wanted, like what they want to hear, is when I come home and I'm with my wife and my kids and I'm just sitting on my couch and I can just be. And I remember I'm driving. I just remember specifically that I was driving on the interstate, and I mean, I'm just weeping because I'm like, that's Randy. Like, that's how he feels, is that, yes, he can stand up on a stage with a guitar. He can go build things with friends. He can talk to, I mean, he's very capable in so many things. But when he feels the most loved and wanted is when he is in our little apartment, and he can sit with us and just be him. And 3s so deeply desire to have that. All right, let's go to the 4s. Our 4s are called the individualists. These are our friends who are kind of ride that line of how can I stand out, okay? I usually, more than likely, I usually have someone in the crowd when I'm talking about these, have kind of a funky color hair. And I'm like, just like her with purple hair, you know what I'm saying? Because these 4s, they kind of like to just ride that whole line of like, not necessarily what's right and wrong, but like, how can I stand out? That's their desire. Look at their core fear. Their core fear is being emotionally cut off or insignificant. So, man, if they can kind of stand out, right, they're not going to be insignificant. In fact, what's something specific about 4s one of my favorite things I would say about 4s is they are so let me say it this way. They are so in tune with their emotions. It's one of the most healthy things you've ever seen, okay? They're very sensitive to their emotions. So, of course, they would fear being emotionally cut off from people. If people cut their emotions off from them, that's a big fear. So they will do what they need to do to stay emotionally connected to people. I've said this many times that I think all of us need a 4 as a friend, right? Especially when you're walking through grief or sadness, deep sadness. Because a 4 will literally sit in that place of sadness with you and just sit there with you. They'll cry with you. They'll be angry with you. All the emotions, they're very in tune with that, and they are totally fine staying in it, right? Until you need to get out of it. Look at their longing. Their greatest longing is to hear you are seen for being special and unique. They don't want to have to stand out. They want someone to see them for who they are and go, you know what? You are valuable just how you are. I once had a male 4 tell me that he said, he goes all the time, I feel like there's a party going on out here and I'm just standing on my tiptoes trying to see what's going on the outskirts of it. A lot of 4s feel that way. And so us that are not 4s, if you have someone who's like that, constantly reminding them that, hey, you don't have to try so hard to stand out. You already are exactly who you need to be, is what they want to hear. All right, our 5s. Our 5s are called the thinkers, all right? These are our people who love to research things, okay? They love to know things. They love knowledge. I've heard 5s talk about how they're like lifelong learners. I mean, they go to school for years because they just enjoy it, right? And these are our people who also, an interesting little tidbit about 5s, is they have one of the lowest amount of energy levels on the Enneagram. True thing, all right? In fact, I've heard it said that 5s wake up with only just about half a battery. You know how we plug our phones in or our tablets or whatever in at night and it goes to 100%. Most of us who are not 5s, or the rest of us who are not 5s, we wake up with 100% battery. You know, granted, you've had a pretty good night's rest, right? And you're ready to tackle the day. Well, every day, regardless of their sleep the night before, a 5 wakes up with just half a battery. In that they have to allocate and be very specific about how they use their time in the day because it could be depleted. Look at their core fear. Being incapable or having depleted energy. They so fear that their energy level would just be sucked out, right? And they wouldn't have anything left, right? That they are very good stewards of time. I think that. In fact, I think they have incredible boundaries. So if you have a friend who you think might be a 5, more than likely he or she has told you, hey, no, I can't go have dinner tonight because I've already done all of this today and that's all I got. And they're very good at stewards of their time in that. Look at what their greatest longing is. It's real interesting. It says your needs, they want to hear your needs are not a problem. Here's the thing about 5s. Again, because of that low energy level that they have, all right, when people come to them with their problems, with those people's problems, it takes a lot of energy. Okay, it takes a lot of energy for them to be engaged with that and, okay, how can I help or what do you need, that kind of thing. And on a lot of times, they don't feel like they have the energy level to handle other people's problems. So what they do is they flip that. And they think the rest of us have that same thing. We can't handle their problems. So I'm always telling, if you figure out that you have a friend or maybe your spouse or a child of yours who is a 5, making sure they understand, hey, who you are is valuable and what you need or what is going on in your life is valuable enough for me to sit here and help you however I can, right? We want to make sure we're communicating that. All right, let's go to the 6s. Our 6s are the loyalist. Good word for the 6, that loyal word, all right? These are our people who will stand by you till the end, all right? True blue. I don't know how they figured this out. I always say this when I say this about 5, or I talk about 6s, but somehow they have figured out that there are more 6s personality, this Enneagram type, than any other type personality, which is really interesting. I don't know how they figured that out, but it makes sense because these are the people, all right? I call them our what if people, all right? They are looking at a situation and they are figuring out all the possible things that could go right or wrong and how are we going to fix it or how are we going to make sure everything's okay, all right? My dad is a 6. So being raised, and I have a very healthy upbringing, childhood with my parents, but being raised by a 6 is kind of interesting because he was very methodical and logical about how, if I came to him with a decision, he kind of would help me write out those pro-con lists and that kind of thing, because everything he's constantly thinking and evaluating things in his mind about how is this going to be the best thing. Here's the deal. What the 6 has in their head is this committee. Okay, they call it the inner committee. And basically, it's a bunch of voices giving different opinions all the time. All right? I can imagine that would be pretty exhausting. All right? So if you have a friend or you figure out maybe this friend of yours is a 6 and he or she has a really hard time making a decision, they probably are a 6. Because constantly there's all these different, well, what if we did this? Well, but then this could happen. And then what if we did this? And they're constantly going back and forth. Look at their greatest fear. Being without support, security, or guidance. 6s attach themselves to people in relationship who are going to be a steady and secure person. In fact, I know from my dad, watching my dad, and my dad has learned the Enneagram and has learned who he is in light of who God has already made him to be and that kind of thing. And just the other day, I saw him post on Facebook, and he commented on a friend of his who is in the hospital, and he said, I'm praying for you because you are one of my strong men. And basically what he means is my dad has attached himself in a healthy way to friendships with men who are strong, who are steady, who are secure. And 6s a lot of times do that. That's very common for them because, again, their greatest fear is being without that. Their greatest longing is to hear you are safe and secure. And we're not talking about locking doors and that kind of thing, although they're going to be pretty good about the safety of things like that. but I'm talking more specifically in relationships. They want to know, is this relationship safe and is it secure? And if it's not, what can we do to fix this? All right, that's kind of where they land with that. All right, let's move to the 7s. Our 7s are called the enthusiast. These are our people who, that life is a party, and if it's not, they will bring the party, okay? They want to come into situations and create the fun that they enjoy, all right? They really do. My dad is a 6, and my mom is actually a 7. So I always, and you guys that have been around me, you know that birthdays are a big deal for me. And I was raised by a mom who is a 7, who the day that I was born, it literally changed. It made her life better. The day that my sister was born, the same thing. The day that my brother was born. So the way she celebrates people and the day that they were born is so good, so enthusiastic, and so full of fun. Because she has this energy level of a 7, and she wants people to feel that value, and there's a big thing there. Look at their greatest fear. Their greatest fear is being trapped in emotional pain or bored. 7s oftentimes kind of get the rap that they kind of move around to different situations, whether it's jobs or hobbies or whatever, because they hate being bored. They hate being stagnant, okay? I have one of my other best friends is a 7, and she says that just recently. She was talking about kind of a possible new adventure she's going to take as far as a job. And she was like, I'm ready for that adventure. Like, she actually used the word adventure. And I thought, for a 7, that's very real. They see life as that. And what can I've done this and I've completed this. Okay, what's the next adventure? All right. Because again, they don't want to be trapped in that. Something specific about 7s, where it said trapped in emotional pain. 7s have a hard time sitting in the sad. You know, how I told you about the 4s and how you need a 4 in your life to sit in that sad place with you, to grieve with you, because the 4s are very in tune with that. A 7 is going to have a hard time with that. That's going to be the friend that's going to be like, hey, I am really sorry that happened. Okay, let's go to lunch, or let's go shopping, or, and there's nothing horribly bad about that, because a lot of times we do need to be distracted a little bit. But we also, where I love to encourage 7s is, hey, it is okay to sit in sad. It is okay to sit in hard things, because God can handle that, right? He gave us our emotions, our positive emotions, and our negative ones that we sometimes see as negative. And he can handle that, and he wants us to be able to encourage and handle it with other people. So look at the 7's greatest longing. It's to hear you will be taken care of. Isn't that interesting? But here's the deal with the 7s, is because when they come into a room that they are the party, people are so attracted to them. Okay. When I, as I'm describing a 7, you may be thinking about that friend that you have. And it's like, you don't want to go to a dinner party without her. You don't want to go to another, a PTO meeting without her. Like whatever it is, you want to be you want to make sure she's with you, because where she is, it's just fun, and you guys can laugh, and it's lighthearted, and it's, that kind of thing. So a lot of times they are taking care of the atmosphere of everybody else. If you're a 7, you probably get what I'm saying. In fact, a lot of that pressure weighs on you. The best friend I was just referring to, just last week, she was sharing how a situation happened at her job, and she said, they have told me that I can't be replaced. And she was like, that's too much pressure on me. She was real, and I loved how she was honest. Like, a situation has happened, and there's a good chance she's going to move to a different job. And she was like, and they're sitting here pressuring me, saying that I can't be replaced, and that's not true. So a lot of times 7s feel that pressure to be, they're responsible for the atmosphere for everybody else, and that's not all right. So a lot of times, do you see their longing? They want to hear someone say, I'm going to take care of you. I care about your feelings. I care about what makes you happy, instead of you always having to do it for everybody else. Does that make sense? All right, 2 more. Look at our 8s. These are what we call the challengers. All right. Our 8s, a lot of times, and I'll be honest, and if you follow any other kind of Enneagram stuff, sometimes they get the bad rap of being those people that are super blunt, super harsh, super straightforward to where it almost is hurtful, all right? But I have some dear friends who are 8s, and I love the thought of how we need every personality, and we'll see this in just a minute before I close, how Jesus showed us that we need every personality to make the body of Christ the healthy body it needs to be. We need people like the 8s. The 8s are our justice-centered people. They are our people who are fighting for the underdog. They are our people who are making wrongs right, and they may do it maybe a little bit harsher than some of us can enjoy, right? But they're going to get it done. In fact, I've heard the 8s are described as a snowplow, and I know we don't see many snowplows around down here. But what a snowplow does is when it's moving along a road, right? It's clearing the snow. Who is it clearing the snow for? Not the people in front of them, right? It's clearing the snow for the people behind them. And that's what an 8 does, is it attacks situations and starts clearing the way so that the people behind them have a path. All right? Now, yes, there are times where, 8s, and I've had conversations with 8s about this, about your tone comes across a little harsh, that it almost takes away from the good you're trying to do. Does that make sense? But knowing the heart of an 8, you know that their heart really does want to help. They just need to learn kind of how to sometimes speak it. Look at the greatest fear of the 8. The greatest fears are being weak, powerless, or controlled. 8s do not like to feel weak. In fact, a lot like a 3, they can look very similar to a 3. They won't try something, attempt something if it's going to make them look weak, all right? They like that control. So then learning to balance that with who God is in their life, right? And that he is the only one who is in control and is the most power, and he is their source of that. They can balance that. Look at their greatest longing. You will not be betrayed. Betrayal is a huge thing for an 8. And you think about it, it makes sense. They are constantly going to bat, plowing the way for other people and making paths for other people and going to bat for other people. They need to know that, hey, if I'm going to go to bat for you, you're not going to leave me. I watched one of my other dear friends walk through a very hard season about 6 to 8 months ago, and in where she lives, and she's on a school board. And they basically were being accused of some stuff, and the school board as a whole. And she is a school board member who, you look at an 8 and you're like, man, what better place for an 8 to be, to lead, be the head of the governing body of a school district, helping and going to bat for these kids and these teachers and administrators and that kind of thing. And this school board was being accused of something that they didn't do. I mean, it was completely false. It was completely wrong. And I watched my friend really just have such a hard time as an 8 with that feeling of betrayal. That feeling that, man, I'm doing all this and I'm working and I'm hurting for these people and I'm walking out there and doing good things, and yet I'm being betrayed. That's a big, big thing for an 8. All right. That last one there is our 9s. Our 9s are called the peacemaker. And it really does, it's a perfect word for the way that 9s live. Okay, they are motivated by what is going to create and keep the most peace. All right. So unlike the 1s we talked about with right and wrong, they're coming into a situation and going, okay, what is going to be the most peaceful outcome that we can create here? All right. But in that, I want you to think about the way, and we know life is not peaceful. People are not peaceful. Situations are not peaceful. So a lot of times, the 9 is kind of pushed aside. These are our people who can sometimes be like a doormat. They're the people that we walk on, the rest of us. We take advantage of these people because they are so trying to kind of make sure everything is peaceful. They're not the people who are standing up strong all the time. They're not the people who are making us all laugh, right? They're just kind of trying to keep the peace. So a lot of times we push them to the side. Look at their greatest fear: being in conflict, overlooked, or losing connection with people. Here's the deal. The 9 really does want to matter. I have two dear friends who are nines, and they have both told me, and really I have a third who has said the same thing, that I want what I say to matter. I want my opinion to be valuable. I want, when I come into a situation and I give what I think about something, I want someone to go, you know what, that's good. That's valuable. But a lot of times, and these three friends of mine would say this, that if I say something, right, and someone doesn't agree with me, that's going to disturb my peace. And so I'm good. They don't give their opinion about restaurants all the way to not going to give their opinion about what you should do in that hard situation, because if it doesn't bring peace, they're out. So nines really have to kind of work with that. Look at their greatest longing: to hear your presence matters. I love that as it ties into, my whole thing about your details matter. A 9 wants to hear that you being in this situation, you being in my life, you being a part of this team, whatever it is, it matters. And that means I'm going to value what you say, and I'm not going to walk on top of you and push you to the side. I'm going to bring you in and use you as an asset because you are valuable. And that's what a 9 desires to hear. All right. Okay, so I know that was a lot of information, but quickly before we end, I want us to go to that second page. Because here's the deal. Once again, our desire is not to just throw a bunch of information about who you might be or your Enneagram type. We want to be who God has created us to be. And he may use the personality assessment like an Enneagram to reveal that to you. But we don't want it to just be for knowledge. In fact, it would be heartbreaking to me if you left here or stopped this video and all you got was a bunch of information, right? We want to go, okay, God, what do you want me to do with this? Who am I in light of who you are? And how do you want me to be healthy? And when we look at that, when we want that, we look at Jesus' example. I want you to look at that second sheet. Here's the deal. He is the Holy Spirit, and we can look at Jesus' life, and then we can bring into the fact that we have all been made, us that have been made new creations. We have the Holy Spirit living within us, and he is our source. I love that word. I think I said that last time I was up here. He is our source. And so let's look at, just quickly, let's go through these scriptures and look at, in light of each type, how the Lord brings balance to who we are and shows us that, hey, we need everybody. Okay? I don't need to just stand in my two-ness and go, nope, I'm good. I can do it all by myself. Nope. I need a 1 beside me. I need a 7 beside me. I need a 5 beside me. We need each other to do this because Jesus shows us. We will see that he is that perfect balance. For the type 1, he is our only righteousness, right? They want to be right and good. He is our only righteousness. It says there, Philippians 3:8-9 says, for his sake, I have lost everything. And I consider it all garbage so that I may gain Christ and may be found in him, not having any righteousness of my own. If you're a 1, I want you to underline that. The righteousness does not come from you, right? It's not my own. My own, derived from the law and its rituals, but that which comes through faith in Christ, the righteousness which comes from God on the basis of my faith. For that 1, I want you to hear that your righteousness, your goodness is not of you. So quit striving for that. It only comes by who you are in Christ, right? And there's freedom in that. For the type 2, he is our ability to help. I needed to hear that. 1 Peter 4:10 says, God has given each of you a gift from his great variety of spiritual gifts. Use them well. If you're a 2, I want you to underline that. Use them well to serve one another. 2s, we don't need to take pride in the fact that we can come into a kitchen and clean it really well, right? We need to be reminded that he is our source to see what needs to be done and serve well, right? For the type 3, he alone ordains our success, right? Look there, Proverbs 16:3. Commit your actions to the Lord. If you're a 3, I want you to underline that phrase. Commit your actions to the Lord, and your plans will succeed. The 3, you are so driven by success and you want that success. And let me say, we need it. We need things done well. But you are not in charge of that success. God is. And so make sure you're committing what you do to the Lord. For the type 4, his acceptance is wholly authentic. That 4, you want the acceptance of every person and you don't want to be on the outside. Look at what it says there in Ephesians 3:18 and 19. And may you have the power to understand, this is for you, as all God's people should, how wide, how long, how high, how deep his love is. May you experience the love of Christ, though it is too great to understand fully, right? We can't even capture it. Then you will be made complete with all the fullness of life and power that comes from God. For know that who you are is already exactly who you're supposed to be. And the love of the Creator God is all that you need. All right, that's big for the 4. The type 5, he supplies all-encompassing wisdom, right? What that 5 wants is wisdom to get in and know what to do, right? He is that source. James 1:5, one of my favorite verses. If you need wisdom, ask our generous God. If you're a 5, underline that. Ask our generous God, and he will give it to you. He will not rebuke you for asking. Isn't that encouraging? In fact, I've heard this is the only time that God says, hey, I'm going to give this to you generously. You're never going to be rebuked. In fact, I'm going to overflow your wisdom if you ask for it. 5, you need to know that it's not just you getting in and learning all the things just to know it, but ask God for wisdom. He is your source in that. Type 6, he provides the fullest guidance. There in Isaiah 30:21, it says, your own ears will hear him. Right behind you, a voice will say, I love this. This is the way you should go, whether to the right or to the left. I love that first. If you're a 6, I want you to underline, your own ears will hear him. 6s, you tend to believe that you can't hear God, or you hear too many things. What if I don't hear God? I love that promise in Isaiah 30. With your own ears, you will hear, and he will be your guidance, not everybody else. All right. Type 7, he is our truest contentment. 7, you need to know that you don't have to look for activities or adventures or parties or jobs or whatever it is to find that contentment. He is your truest contentment. Psalms 16:5 and 6. I love this verse. Lord, you alone are my inheritance, my cup of blessing. You guard all that is mine. The land you have given me is a pleasant land. What a wonderful inheritance. 7s, would you say that the Lord is your only contentment? And if he is, then yes, you can walk through any situation, any emotion with that joy and that peace. I love that. Type 8, he is the greatest protection. 8s, you are so good at protecting us. You are so good at helping us stay protected and stay fought for. But you need to know that he is your source in that. He is your greatest protection. Psalms 91:14, because he loves me, says the Lord, I will rescue him. I will protect him, for he acknowledges my name. 8, know that you will not be betrayed by the God who says he will rescue you. And as he's your source, you can be the best fighter for other people that you're supposed to be. And then the type 9, he is our peace, right? We're getting ready to enter the season, one of my favorite seasons of remembering that he was born the Prince of what? Peace. It is who he is. 2 Thessalonians 3:16 says, now may the Lord of peace himself give you his peace. If you're a 9, underline that phrase. Give you his peace at all times and in every situation. The Lord be with you all. 9s, you can't make situations peaceful in and of yourself, even though you're great people. But you will run out and you will get burned out and you will get hurt. But when he is your source of peace, because he is peace, then when you walk into a situation, you walk into a relationship, you walk into anything like that, you exude the peace of God, and that's lasting. All right, so I hope that wasn't too much information. I put my information, my email and my phone number at the bottom of that handout. Text me, call me, email me if you have questions about it. I love to make sure that it's not muddy. I know sometimes if you want to go a little bit deeper with Enneagram, it can kind of get, okay, this is overwhelming and muddy, but I really want to know more. Please send me questions. I want you to have that, and that's why I put that on there. But again, my greatest hope would be that you would walk out of here knowing, hey, this is how God wired me, right? He made you this way, right? Whether it's the Enneagram that you study or another personality assessment, He made you this way. And He wants you to be exactly who He has made you. And so quit living in that fog of battling back and forth between the spirit and the flesh, and be confident in who He has made you. All right, let me pray for us. God, I thank you so much that you are my source, and you are the ladies who are listening to this, you are their source. That this isn't about me. This isn't about someone who came up with this Enneagram thing. This isn't about getting information. This is about being who you have created us to be for the ultimate glory of God. And so I pray for my friends here and on the other side of the screen watching, God, that you would equip them to know themselves and know themselves well, to see those times when they are going unhealthy and they need to come back a little bit, when they're trying to do the thing in their own might, and they need to be reminded, hey, He is my source. You are our source. And we don't take delight or confidence in anything or anyone else. May you get the glory in what we do. In Jesus' name, amen.